Welcome to the Sharpe Show. I'm so happy to have you guys with me this evening, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. Yes, it is a Tuesday, and I'm here chatting with you about things that I think are affecting us in New York State, New York City, and across the nation. Everybody's talking about it. I talked about it yesterday. I'm talking about it today. Talked about it this morning on my show. It's all about what's going to happen when all these people are getting fired, all these people are leaving, and they're all getting, this is all happening because of government deciding that you can't work. So the worries that I have, and I have several of them, as some of you know already, but I want to cover because I actually have a special guest on tonight who's going to give you some details about something you probably didn't even think about. But there's a lot of things happening. One is just the unfairness of it. I mean, that drives me crazy. You get a bunch of people who, when they didn't know how bad COVID was going to be, they didn't know if it was going to be the plague, if it was going to be, something light, it was going to be a common cold. They had no idea. And they still went to work every day. They went to work in the hospitals. They went to work in the prisons. They went to work in the food services. They went to work in all these places. And we didn't seem to care. You're like, okay, we clapped for them at 7. That was nice. And that was it. And then now it's been a year and a half, and they have been taking, sacrificing all this time. And now we're like, oh, we have new rules. You don't like those rules? Get out. And that was bad. And now, of course, my Mayor de Blasio has doubled down and said, well, essential workers, yeah, we've already screwed you over. Now we're going to screw everybody over. So you wanted to come back to New York City? You want to restart your business? Nope. Do as I say or pack your trash. You're out. Man, does that bother me on an unfairness level, but it also bothers me on an economic level. These are people who want to, have a life, survive in New York State. They're not just going to sit here and starve. They're going to pack up and leave, and that's even worse. But there's another area, two I want to bring up specifically that most people, some know, some don't. The first one's hospitals. Hospitals, as you start firing people and making people feel like they shouldn't be there, what kind of service are they going to have? What kind of service are they going to provide? And that's life and death. That's your life, your loved one's life. That's your death. That's your loved one's death, or serious health. And not just physical health, also mental health. That too. When I add the mental health aspect, now I got to bring up the next piece, the prison system. You might go, well, prison system, mental health. Yeah, they are linked directly together. Absolutely. And most of you know the biggest mental health facility we have in the United States is our prison system. And that's true in New York State without question. The governor's even talked about it. But there's another part to that. You have a bunch of prisoners who are clearly in trouble, right? They're committing crimes. They're in a bad spot. Yep, that's true. Do you want to feel bad for some of the people of mental health? Of course you're human. Of course you want to feel bad for some of those guys. I get it. Everybody would. If you're a loved one, of course you do. But what about the other people who are there? Not just the prisoners. How about the corrections officers guarding the prisoners? How about them? Do we care about them? I don't hear people talk about them at all. Now, this is kind of personal to me. Many of you who know my story, my father was a CO in Rikers Island, so I remember all of that. So I have a little bit of a personal link here. I do, no question. But if you remember during my first campaign in 2018, I spoke about corrections officers, how they're being treated so poorly, how they weren't getting a contract, they'd taken zeros for a couple of years, how all these things had happened. And I was the only one saying, I'll sign the contract tomorrow with no punishment clause. Just help me fix this prison system. And we've been trying, in theory, to fix the prison system. And who have we been ignoring? The corrections officers. We don't talk to them about it at all. We ignore them completely and try to fix it somehow around them and then blame them when something goes wrong. That's what we've been doing for literally years. I'm going to tell you some stats which may make some of you sad, but it's still true. The average life expectancy of a corrections officer in New York State is under 60 years. Every single corrections officer that I've ever met, and I've met dozens of them, every one of them knows someone who's committed suicide. Every one of them. This is a tough job. When we talk about law enforcement, we often talk about cops, and that's not a bad thing. We should care about cops too. This is not a not cops thing. But we should also care about all of law enforcement, to include parole officers, corrections officers. These are all people who are in law enforcement, and we ignore all except the cops. Again, not anti-cop, you know that. But there's others. We can add others on top of that, and we don't. So all of the damage that's been done, hospitals, schools, to our own local businesses, to people getting fired because of government contracts, it's also been happening in our prison system. We've been ignoring that for literally years. I want to bring on somebody, a friend of mine, and someone who helped me to understand how bad it was. A guy who I consider a friend, someone who I'm happy is going to give us a little bit of a story himself, a corrections officer in New York State, the man himself, Todd Kilburn. Todd, how are you, sir?
Hey, Larry, how are you? Doing well.
Good, good, good. I know you have a bit of a story that you want to tell, and I think my audience wants to hear it. Do you need me to intro it, or can you just go ahead?
Oh no, I can take it from here, Larry. That's fine.
Go ahead, please.
Well, as I said, I'm Todd Kilburn. I'm a corrections officer in New York State. Work at Auburn. At the start of the pandemic, if we take it back a little bit, we're having some serious problems now with people getting locked out. We're having serious problems with people getting put on disciplinary for not following these mandates and stuff like that. At
What do you
first,
mean? What hold on, help my audience out. What does put on disciplinary mean?
disciplinary is where they'll fine you, or they'll put you on leave without pay. It can
So
vary
they'll
depending on the
find the
severity.
corrections officer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we're having a serious problem now with that. So let me take you back a little bit. All right. At the start of the pandemic, I was just coming up on my scheduled vacation. Right. So what we ended up doing is, this was the point in time where Cuomo began to reduce the capacity for places. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember the like 3 days before my vacation, they reduced the capacity to, however, I think it was like 50%. Then we went down to 25, and then finally they were like, shut it down. And that is when
Yep.
I went on vacation, is right there. So I came back, and the place was completely different. Like
Yep.
all the programs were closed. The non-essential staff was working from home. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much everything was locked down, like the shops, the schools. A lot of the call outs
So
were done.
hold on. Now,
Mhm.
if you start locking down the schools and the shops,
Mhm.
what the hell are the inmates going to do?
That's just it, Larry. I mean, a lot of those guys, they just would go out for recreation. They would go out, and they'd leave their cells for chow, and then they have to go right back.
So you're literally taking a
Mhm.
bunch of felons in this
Mhm.
case, and you gave them something to do to at least keep them busy doing something.
Yep.
And now they thought, you know what the right answer is? Let's keep more COs and their support staff at home, and let's give them nothing to do. Because what could go wrong? Is that
Yeah.
did
Well,
I get that right?
exactly. What could go wrong? Perfect.
Right. Yes.
So, yeah, a lot of, and this is when there was this big debate, the initial debate about masks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you could understand why there would be some concern about people wearing masks inside a correctional facility where you have to be able to identify people.
Yes.
Um, so a lot of us were like, initially, we were like, hey, listen, we're gonna wear masks, and the administration gave us like a firm thumbs down on that. Um, and it wasn't until a couple months later that they began to actually change their tune. This is when like all the news started the debate on the masks and
Mm-hmm.
what they should do about it. So finally, we were able to wear masks. Um, and it took a while for the protocol for what we're going to do with the inmates and how we're going to handle this.
So hold on,
And
I'll be clear about this. So
yep.
now you're taking away anything for them to do to keep them busy.
Hmm.
then you're adding on more rules that you guys are going to have to try to enforce on these people who now have nothing to do.
Yes.
And you're taking away administrative staff on top of that. Did I get that right?
Yes. Yep.
What could go wrong? Okay, go
What could
ahead.
go wrong?
Exactly. Yes.
So now we're at the point, like it was about last summer when everybody started getting sick, right? It was kind of neat because while we were watching everybody get sick, at least in the prison, it's pretty contained.
Right.
You
Sure.
know, there's not a lot of people going in and out. At first, they did not shut down the visits, and most of the visitors are from New York, so that was the hot spot. We
Right.
luckily didn't get that many people that got sick off of that. Finally, around summer, that's when it hit us. It hit us during that second wave. Um, all the officers were getting sick. There was a lot of units that were shut down, and they were converted to negative pressure units so that we could house people there, depending on
What's a negative? Help me out. What's a negative pressure unit?
negative pressure unit is where the air is always being blown out, so that
Got it.
not it's a kind of like a HVAC system, how those work. So a lot of the units were converted to that, and we would house the different inmates depending on what level they were symptomatic, they were just quarantined as a precaution, or they were positive COVID inmates.
So now
Now,
this had to be a challenge because my assumption is, there are cliques and gangs in these prisons.
oh yeah, oh
So
definitely.
you now have to not just segregate them because they're sick or not sick or COVID positive, but now you've got rivalries within the system, within the prison, and they're not making money because they can't do their other stuff. So now you've add extra pressure to it. And now they're already wearing masks, right?
Yeah, yep. Whenever they would leave their cell, they would have to be masked, and that was
Wow.
a lot of fun to try to enforce those rules. So
Yes, I can imagine.
here it is. Here it is. Hey
Wow.
guys, don't stab each other, and could you please wear masks? You know.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
So,
yes. And literally, you
um,
have to say in prison, please don't stab each other. That's actually a thing. Yes,
yeah.
I'm sure. Yes. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Yeah. So, like I said, that wave hit us, and a lot of us started getting sick. The staff levels went down really low. There were parts of the day where it was really even difficult to run the basics like chow and recreation. Obviously, everything else was shut down. There wasn't any buses being run from facility to facility, so that
Mm.
different inmates they kind of shuffle them around a little bit, and all that stopped because obviously they didn't want, if there was a sick inmate within a prison, obviously that whole prison is kind of at risk. So
Right.
they try to keep it contained, try to keep the inmates from being shuffled around.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So that hit you in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Then what
So
happened?
yeah, and then then we had a problem there where it's like, um, there were a lot of people getting very sick. There's, some of them were having to be taken out with, ambulances. Some of the
So
COs were
I,
getting
I
sent
gotta
home.
guess, right?
With
I
that,
gotta guess if I'm in prison that there's gonna be people who are faking it, right? Because they want to get out, right? Isn't there gonna be some prisoner who's gonna be like, oh, I can't breathe or whatever, right? Whatever is the symptom they see the other guy get. Aren't they gonna try to fake it and see if they can get out of the prison so they can hang out at the hospital too? Or no? Did that not happen?
no, luckily we had protocols in place for all that. Like
Oh,
there
good. Okay.
there were specific units for people that hadn't tested positive yet, that were
Got it.
symptomatic, and then they had to be tested and all that stuff, and so on. So
Okay.
that we didn't really have a problem with that. It was more
Good.
so the COs, and the fact that you do remember when COVID first, everybody had to quarantine, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, it would be 9 days and you couldn't go to work and so on. Well, that obviously doesn't translate well to, a workforce that has to come to work every day.
Yes, and
So,
this is what people don't get, right? You can't not have guards at the prison. That like
yep,
doesn't work. you can't not have guards at the prison. You have to have guards at the prison, right? Yes.
Absolutely. We can't close down,
Yep.
a lot of the posts there. So it's just, I mean,
You
there's only
can
so
shut the
much we
school
can
down
work
if you
with.
want to. You can't shut down the prison. Yes.
No, no. So we got to that point where they had to adapt those I guess we should say quarantine procedures to
Uh-huh.
the jail. And at first they were sending people home. Then the staff levels got so low, they said you can come to work as long as you're not symptomatic. If you get symptomatic while you're at
Ah.
work, you got to leave. You know, and as a result, a
But
lot of people were.
wasn't there a feeling, I would assume, didn't some of the corrections officers think, man, I just want to get sick. I don't want to be here. Didn't you have, I mean, they're just humans, right?
Yeah,
SEALs just humans, right? So didn't some of them say, this is horrible. This is terrible. I'd rather be sick at home than be sick in here with an environment of a bunch of more unhappy prisoners, and I'm half staffed on top of it.
yep. I'm sure that probably was a thought that crossed a lot of people's mind, but
Of course.
we just kept coming to work. We kept doing what we could. A lot of us, like for me, for instance, I worked 57 doubles, and that's a 16-hour shift in 2 months.
That's almost every day.
That is pretty much every day.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
it's a bit of a legend over there. So
Okay.
we
Wow.
a lot of us were just getting stuck every day,
Yeah.
or mandated, as you would say.
Yep.
And we were told, like, hey, listen,
This
we don't
had
have
to
enough staff to
be
cover it.
extra hell on your families. I mean, I know
Hmm.
already that COs have a high divorce rate. I know their families get hammered. I already know that's already true before this. This
Yes.
had to be devastating on families.
Yeah. I'll give you this though. The one positive thing that this pandemic did have is that everybody kind of pulled together. Um,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Good.
everybody was. I noticed specifically that at least the inmates were a little bit more behaved than they usually are. Um,
Okay.
there was a little bit more understanding from family members and children and so on, and that
That
did
is
help a
good.
lot.
You just made humanity feel good. Thank you. I like that. There we go. There's some good stuff
So,
here. It's good. All right. Warm, fuzzy feeling came out from this
yes.
place. I love it. It's very good. So,
So,
so now you went through all of this. Now it's 2021.
mhm. And things
Ha-
started to slow down. Things actually are getting to the point. The visits resumed for the inmates.
Mhm.
Programs are going. Schools are going. All the people that were doing work from home, they're all back at the facility. Everything seemed
Right?
to be going pretty well. And you know how the state is; they love to mess up a good thing.
That's correct. Things cannot be going well. That's a
Can't,
problem.
things can't be going well. So
Right? Yes.
we saw it coming from a distance. Okay, we've got all of a sudden we saw the hospitals. They started mandating that all the staff there get vaccinated, or they were going to be dismissed. At first, they started demanding that you get tested, and then
Mhm.
they were like, "Oh nope, now you're going to have to get the vaccine, or you start looking for a new job, or you're put on disciplinary." So we saw that come for there, and we just figured it was going to roll right through the entire state. And
Yep.
now is the time when that's actually coming to fruition. The mandates have hit us. Um,
So let
there's
me
a
ask a
lot of
crazy question. Is there a mandate for the prisoners?
there is not a mandate for the prisoners. No, they're able to make that decision on their own.
So I
They,
want to be clear. Hold
however,
on.
have
I want to
enticed them with a nice McDonald's meal if they do get vaccinated.
but that is a nice thing. I like that.
Yep.
However,
Yes.
to be clear, the prisoners have freedom of choice. The guards don't.
Yeah. Well, now, well, they have implemented a choice system. Okay, so
Oh, okay.
you should be vaccinated. That's what they're kind of implying. But you can test out until you do. But Larry, like you and I both know, how long does that last before the you should get vaccinated? You will be vaccinated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And we saw it in New York yesterday.
Mhm.
right?
I just saw that news conference yesterday and I couldn't believe it. I says, wow, now you can't even take your kids out and take them, ice skating at Rockefeller Center, anywhere,
No,
no.
no, you got 7, 8-year-old kids. You can't even take them out anymore.
Mhm.
Absolutely, 100%. So they, if you're a prisoner and you get the jab, you get a McDonald's meal.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not a
That was,
bad deal. All right.
yep.
Of all the things they've done, I'm not mad about that one. It's fine. That's fine. Whatever. They should give all of us some McDonald's if we it's not a bad idea. We should all get
Yeah.
McDonald's. Not a bad idea. I like it. It's good. So
So,
now things, so you're now worried that now you're gonna start having the same mandates. Tell me what you're worried about now.
yes, I think now well, first of all, a lot of people were put on disciplinary because most of us are just coming to work. We've got doubles, we've got things that we're doing. It's a grueling schedule. We get stuck a lot. The next
So
thing you
hold on.
know,
I want people to understand what stuck means, right?
yes,
What
stuck
people
is
don't understand, like your job, whatever job someone else is doing, not Todd's job, right? But anyone else's job, if whatever 5 o'clock comes around or something, whatever the case may be, your time is up. You go home, right? You don't have to stay. You go home,
yeah,
except if you want to stay, you can stay. But in Todd's job, if someone doesn't show up, you're staying.
that's it.
Again, you
Yep.
can't close the prison down, right? That's
Or,
not how it works.
yep.
So you might have said, but I had a doctor's appointment. That's correct. You had a doctor's appointment. I was going to go see my girlfriend, boyfriend. You were. No more. You're here.
Yep.
I had my kid's birthday. That doesn't, too bad. You're going to be
Yep.
here. That's what's happening now. And most people don't see that when they think about the prison. When they think about the prison, they think only about the inmates, which is why you keep hearing me bring up the COs, because COs are never thought of. It's always the prisoners and the cops and prisoners, but no one thinks about the COs. And this is the thing they don't get, right? And I'm so happy that you're saying this, because I don't think people thought that, oh, wait a minute, you can't close down a prison. You got to be there. It's a whole different world. So I'm sorry, keep going.
Like
please.
the 1900s where they leave them a loaf of bread and lock the door and then be like, okay, we'll see you on Monday. No, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation now.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. So what do you see as happening now? What are you concerned about, or what's the worry?
Well, the worry is that number one, we're going to continue to be short staffed. This is the thing that we're running with hospitals. You take a look and you say, oh, well, we're not going to have any more surgeries that aren't mandatory.
Right.
Or we're not going to have this, or we're going to shut down this wing, or, you can't, I don't see how that's even possible with a prison, at least on the long term. I mean, there's a few
Right.
things you can shut down, but there's not a ton. There's just no way
Right.
to work around that.
Absolutely.
And, here we are, and the state is making it more difficult for us to keep the staff levels that we're already short on.
So let me go, if you feel comfortable. Do you feel
Mhm.
comfortable talking about how they're emptying out prisons?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So here's my problem. In theory, do I want us to empty out prisons? Of course. I
Yeah.
would love to have a state full of happy people who never commit crimes, right? Of course, I would love that. That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not where New York State is, right? We're not there, right?
Yep.
Hopefully,
I
yep.
definitely had that moment where I was like, hey, they're letting all these people out. Let's hope they don't come back. And that's not the way it went down.
No, it would be awesome if that were true. So I
Yep.
just want to be clear, in my world, my magical world, I would love that to be true. I'm not against that as a goal that we can look forward in the future. I'm just saying where we are now, we are not there now.
No.
So as they start shutting down prisons, I felt like they were purposefully pushing people out who maybe shouldn't go out. And the question I have for you is, when, if at all, were they asking you about this? The COs, were you guys consulted? Did they talk to you about it? Did they give you when were you talked to?
That was not anything we were consulted whatsoever. I believe that was more of a issue with what was formerly parole, which is now
Mhm.
community supervision, and that was probably dealt with on like an Albany level.
That is one of the things that bothers me more than anything else, because you and I both know what I'm about to say is true. My audience may not be clear, but there
Mhm.
are three types of people that I know are in prison. Those who should probably never get out, those who should do their time and get a second chance at life, and those who should never be in prison. The problem is I don't know which one is which, but I would bet if I had to guess who would know, it would probably be the COs who work with them every day. They would probably be the best people to consult with to tell me which ones I probably should err on the side of leaving in this place and which ones should I go out of my way to try to get out back into the world. Now, could a CO be wrong? Of course, COs are human like anybody else. But am I going to trust the people who are on the ground seeing them versus somebody in Albany? I'm going to trust you, Todd. I'm going to trust you far more. You're a human. You'll be wrong here or there, but they're going to be wrong all the time. And we can see that to be true. And not
Oh,
just that, you have a vested interest, right? You don't want the guys coming back. They don't care. They
yeah,
get paid either way. They don't care. If the prison system's broken, they still go home at night. They're not getting stuck. They're not doing doubles. They'll be fine. They're not concerned, but you guys are.
yeah. Well, let me ask you a question, Larry. Like you have a business, right?
Yep.
Okay. When have you ever been able to profit successfully off a 10% success rate?
Wow, I'd be in trouble.
Yeah, you'd go right under. Absolutely.
I'd
But
I'd
here
be
we
in
are. We got
trouble.
a 10% success rate, which is shrinking even more.
Yep.
And we continue to do this.
I agree. So when you say 10% success rate, you mean in people not coming back to
Recidivism.
prison?
Yeah.
Yes.
People that are coming back. Yeah.
Yes. That to me is one, as you've heard me talk about when I've talked about the idea of fixing the prison system. It's about getting COs to show me the way to figure out how to move people from A to B to C out into the world.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that. Because if you have, regardless of what idea or concept you use, COs have to be part of that as you move people from one to the other. Not just that, you know this. There are a lot of COs who the words they used to me was, I'm tired of rolling around on the floor with these guys. So that's the phrase they used to me, which is
Hmm.
some COs, they would love to be able to move into a more, how do I fix this realm? More into a let me have the conversation with these guys, realm. How do I decide which people do I pull out of this and put into my phase 1 and who goes into phase 2? And what has bothered me is every time I've talked with COs, they always tell me the same thing you just told me. You're never even consulted.
Hmm.
You're never even consulted. And me, you said I have a business. I do. You can see my symbol right behind me.
Yeah.
And one of the things I do is I consult with businesses. And when I do that and we want to make changes, I don't say, hey, top leaders, tell me what has to happen. I don't do that because they're always wrong. Because if they were right, they wouldn't need my help. So by default, they are always wrong. So why don't I ask the people who are on the front line? And that's who I ask all the time. And they tell me the actual issues that are happening every single day. They're the ones who tell me this. And that's how you create policies to fix things. And when it comes to our prison system, we never ask the people on the front line. It's insane. It wouldn't work in business. It doesn't work in the world. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing. So I'm sorry. Is there anything else you want to bring up? I sucked a little bit of time there.
No,
What do
no, it's
you want to
okay.
bring up?
That's I just think that what you said is right on point. Unfortunately now, because of the way that we've kind of recovered from the pandemic, we now are getting to a point where we have, the jail is returning back to normal, and violence is increasing there. Gangs are increasing there. It definitely would be nice if we had a little bit of a better system to track that and do that than what Albany gives us.
Okay, so look, let's go down that road then. What if What would you like to have from Albany, or what would you like to have in general as a way of shifting and making this a better recovery or better change?
Well, I've spoke to you about it before. It's like
Mhm,
I was a big proponent of like the shock incarceration model,
mhm.
and I think people should come in through that shock incarceration model where they learn. It's almost like boot camp
Yep,
for inmates, and I think everybody should come in through there.
there we go.
That's just a good way to teach. Reward system. A lot of these guys haven't had rules in their life ever.
Yes,
You know.
absolutely. Yes. All right, let me grab a couple of comments from people who are talking about this. Shelly says, "I wonder what could be hidden behind a mask." You guys must have been worried about that too, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, because
Yep.
now what they got a blade, they got a knife, they got a key, they got something. Who knows, right?
hmm A lot
Absolutely.
that's a lot of the way that they hide contraband to begin with is they'll cheek it, and the next thing you know, pull it out, something goes wrong.
There we go. Absolutely. Kirsten says, "I didn't catch that. Is he saying 10% of the people come back, or there is only a 10% success rate, which means 90% of the people come back?"
About 90% of the people are coming back.
Yes. Horrible. Horrible. But with other plans, like the one that was in Massachusetts called the Humvee program, based heavily
Yes.
upon vets, they only had a 7% recidivism rate. 7 came back, not
hmm
90, 7%. A huge difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
So,
funny that you mentioned that, Larry, because one of the things that one of the shock incarceration facilities that we did have, Willard Drug Treatment Center, which was a
mm,
97-day program for people who violated,
oh, they shut that down, didn't they?
they shut it down. And it won all type of awards. And guess what's the first to go? Anything that
Yeah, I
works.
remember that. They shut that down. I was like, what? Of all the things to shut down, that was the one that was working. I, I'm wow, wow. Ed says, "I took the corrections test. I'm kind of glad I never followed through. You are so important, but you're like trash. Kind of a trend for New York State employees. This is a thing. Yes, right? We do this. We act like we love all the essential people, and then as soon as we don't need them anymore, gone. It's gone. Forget it. Go away. Terrible. Ed's right. I mean, let me ask you, Todd. I mean, if you don't want to answer, it's okay. But why do you stay? Why didn't you run? Why didn't you
Well,
say, you know what, I'm out of it. I'm packing up and going to Kentucky and never coming back? Why didn't you do that?
that's very common.
Yes.
That a lot of people, who don't have a lot of time, they just treat it like, oh well, it's just time for me to change up my job. But a lot of people that are right in the middle of their career, they have a sense of duty, they have a sense of wanting to stick around until this can at least go back to normal or be solved, or
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
until they
This.
retire.
Yep. The second
Yep.
thing I found with COs is like every corrections officer I met knew exactly how much time they had left before they
Yeah.
retired.
Yep.
They all knew exactly. Do you know yours?
Oh, yep. Yep.
Tell me,
10 years.
please.
Ready to
There we
go.
go. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Absolutely. They all like no, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm out. They know I'm out in 5 years. I'm out in 10 years. Some are
Some
like,
people
I'm
got
out.
it to the day. They're like
Yes. Oh, yes.
368 days.
100%.
Yep.
Yes. Some are like 2 years, 5 months, 3 days. Like,
Yep.
wow. And they're not even calculating. That's like in their head. They like know it. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, yes. So, John says, you need to speak to the CEOs to have them help you. Yep. This is one of your best campaign issues last time. To plan to let CEOs rate the rehabilitation reforms. Yes. I wanted to include the CEOs in everything. They're the ones who have to implement. So, why
Yep.
wouldn't I include them? It's insane. But again, I have heard no one talking about this at all. No one. So anyway, Shelly asked a question. She says, "Has New York State, I'm sorry, NYSCOBA been helpful?"
Yeah. I would say in a lot of the cases, they definitely were fighting for us.
Good.
I mean, it varies from prison to prison, but
Sure.
statewide, yes, they've been reasonable about this.
There we go. Ed says, "I was a New York State employee. So I can say that. It's good. It was one of my most ungrateful employers and groups of upper leadership in my entire professional career. I'd rather go back to active duty army in a third world country. Wow, Ed is really unhappy. He is not happy. Okay, I get it. I'm glad you're not an employee anymore. I'm
Yeah,
glad.
that's very good. There's a lot of guys that are doing the National Guard thing, and they're like, "Wow, I liked it better when I was being shot at."
Yes. It's sad. Yes. I wish that wasn't true. But let me grab some real fast. Guys, like, comment, share. If this is interesting to you, if it matters to you, if you tell people about it, like, comment, share, let people know this is happening. It does matter tremendously. You want to get more people to see this and understand what's going on. And by the way, I have a sponsor. The sponsor is, of course, the Advocate for Self-Government, and they have a pandemic survey. So if you want to take that pandemic survey, click that link right there. Take that survey. You might have changed how you think now with all the mandates and such. You might have changed. Take it and then share it. If you've already taken it recently, then just share that link with your friends and have them talk about it. The reason is, if you just say, are you anti-vax or pro-vax, whatever, people start fighting. But if you talk about the actual issues that the pandemic brought up, speak about the issues, speak about the prisons, speak about the hospitals, and now we're actually having conversation and trying to fix things. So please hit that link, support my sponsor, support the show. It helps tremendously, obviously. And like, comment, and share. It does matter. So let me ask you, Todd, is there anything else you want to bring up that I might have missed, or if there's something you want to bring up now before we kind of wrap this up?
Well, I mean, I think you pretty much got it all. I wanted to mention the Halt Act. I don't know if you've tackled,
tell me. No,
but I'd like to
go.
hear you talk about it.
Go
Definitely
ahead.
would.
No,
Well,
you tell me what you feel. Tell me. Tell me.
well, the Halt Act, it has definitely increased the violence. There's no form whatsoever of discipline that can be actually used against people who commonly violate all the rules in the jail. It's just, there's no box time, no way to have any control whatsoever to keep the jail orderly.
And this is my point that I keep bringing up. Am I against prison reform? No, not at all. I think prison reform is a wonderful idea. However, did they ask COs how the Halt Act would affect the prison? Did they ask the COs, okay, if I can't use this, can I use that? What can I use?
I'm sure most of the ideas in the Halt Act came from people who had possibly toured the jail maybe 6 or 7 days. So
I
that seems
like
to
that.
be,
That is very good.
yeah, it's a common theme.
Very good. Two or 3 days they were around. I love it. But the other issue is, look, I'm not a fan of solitary confinement, but I understand that sometimes people need to be separated, right? I get it. I understand that sometimes COs they're risking their own life, literally. A CO could be stabbed to death. That's a thing that happens in our prisons.
Yeah.
So why in the world? I mean, I would argue being a corrections officer is more dangerous than being a cop. And I think people don't think that's true. No, I think it's true. It's more dangerous being a corrections officer than it is being a cop. Because the people, when you're a cop out in the street, most of the people aren't fighting back. But in prison, they do. They do.
Oh, yeah.
They have nothing to lose.
Yeah,
They do fight back.
There's definitely higher concentration, and as they start to let people out of these jails, the concentration of extremely bad guys is getting worse and worse.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So let me move to the next level. What would you personally, if you're okay? I'm not again. I'm going to be clear. You asked me to talk about the Halt Act. I will. I'm not against the idea of prison reform at all. I think it's a wonderful thing. We should care about the prisoners. We should care about the prisoners' loved ones. But the problem is we've forgotten about the corrections officers. I would like to care about all of them. They are all important. Let's have a conversation about all of them. And the other thing, you have a world where one bad corrections officer doesn't destroy the entire prison, but one bad prisoner literally kills others.
Absolutely.
Right? Literally kills others. If there's a bad corrections officer, that's a bad thing. I don't want a bad corrections officer, but maybe they beat some guy up when they shouldn't have, or maybe they get something, they bring some contraband and they shouldn't have. Okay, that happens. Bad. I don't want it. But the odds of someone getting killed or multiple people losing their lives or being severely injured, slim. A bad prisoner, yeah, that's a real possible outcome. That is a real possible outcome. So how, right? How do we deal with that issue without being cruel, if that makes any sense?
I think it's just more control on the local level, I would say.
So you think each individual prison is going to have more?
Yeah, I would
Are
say
you saying you think
programs,
that individual prisons should
definitely.
have more freedom to figure out how to control prisoners?
Yeah, I'd say at least on a facility by facility level.
Okay.
You
All
know,
right.
and
So
like I
almost like
said,
experimentation.
a lot of the problems would be solved if we had just like we could start everybody on a base level. We could bring them
Right.
in and have a better orientation program. Like I said, why not send them through
Okay.
shock incarceration right off the get go? You know.
Gotcha. Okay. Kirsten says one bad corrects also literally kills others. See Joe. Oh yeah. No, Kirsten. Yes and no. Yes, it could be one, but that entire system was broken. That
Hmm.
wasn't just one bad CO. That was a system that allows corrections officers to be bad and an environment that says prisoners aren't human. I don't want corrections officers to think that prisoners aren't human, but I also don't want them to be allowed to be treated like prisoners, like they're not human. This has got to be a respect piece, which is the critical aspect. In look, for anyone who is, and Todd, you tell me if I'm wrong, but for the vast majority of people in prison, respect is everything. Am I right here?
Oh yes. Yep.
It's everything. So if you're giving each person respect, you're going to have a much better environment in that prison if everybody's getting respect, right? And that's the critical aspect. What happened in those prisons in the prison in Arizona is the prisoners were getting no respect, and therefore they were fighting back and acting accordingly, and therefore officers were acting accordingly, right? But when you give everybody respect, and I think to your point, Todd, when everyone gets what the rules are, it's crystal clear. We
Yeah.
understand how this works. I feel like that's going to make things a whole lot better.
Yeah. I agree. You know, there's a saying in corrections: give them what they're entitled to and nothing more.
There we go.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you give them exactly that, they go, okay, that's what I'm entitled to. You've given me the respect that I expect. You've met my expectations. But the hardest part, I see what you're saying is if we don't show them what the expectations are up front, they're more apt to feel disrespected and strike out. And your
Hmm.
point is show them up front what's expected.
Yes. Yeah.
I like it. That's good. All right, Todd, I want to say thank you. Is there anything you want to tell the audience before we wrap this up?
No, I think that's about it. We covered it all, Larry. Thank you for
All
having
right,
me.
my friend. Of
All right.
course. Yes, yes. I hope more people see you. Have a good
Yeah.
one.
All right.
So this is a good point that we're speaking about, right? We always talk about hospitals. We talk about so many things, but not the prisons. While hospitals are critical, I'm not at all trying to take away the problems that we're having with hospitals. I also want to bring up this one. This one is important. And yes, it's a bit personal to me. Hold on, see if I can find a picture real fast. Do I have a picture? Hold on one second, guys. I might actually have a picture. Do I have one? And I can't find it. Okay. I can't find that. I actually had a picture of my father and his corrections officer suit. I'll see if I can find it later. Maybe I'll show it if I can find it. But it is a little bit personal to me, a little bit because of that. And I just think we have to be, if we treat our corrections officers poorly, we by default will be treating our prisoners poorly. We should be treating everybody with respect, and particularly the people who don't, the non-violent people that we sadly have in prison now. That if we don't do this right, we'll all become violent. With a 90% recidivism rate, we should be ashamed of that. Now, here's the worst part. We have a 90% recidivism rate, yet we're still throwing people out of prison left and right. Why would you be doing that? You're literally saying we're going to throw 10 people out of prison. 9 of them are going to commit a crime. Keeping those people in prison would literally stop 9 crimes. What are we doing? What are we doing? Now, does it mean that I don't want one guy to get out? I do. So let's have a better way of getting the people out. So maybe it's the reverse. Maybe let 10 people out and 1 guy commits a crime. 9 are free to go live their lives the way they want to and get their second chance at life when 1 guy screws up. I don't mean to be sexist when I say guy, but it's guys. I mean, prison's filled with men. That's just how it works. I don't mean to be, this is just factual, filled with men. So how about we do it that way instead? I think Todd had a lot of good ideas. I'm glad. I hope you guys heard it and enjoyed it. It was very special for me for this one. It's not just hospitals. It's also prisons. But in New York City, I should say, in New York City, now with de Blasio's rule, it's not just that. It's everything. It is all of the businesses now being forced to do what the government says when there's no evidence that they should, right? John says, politicians always think they know better than the ground troops. Yes. Nice here you're talking about making them inclusive. That would be, yes. Thank you. So Kirsten says, I'm really interested to know if the 90% recidivist rate includes those returning for victimless parole violations like missing curfew and failing a drug test. Yes, that's true. And Kirsten, you know what? I have to have you on to talk about that. Yes, I'm going to have you on to talk about that. That is a great point. Yes, that piece is critical, and I'm sure that's true. And I also don't know if it's actually 90% or that was just what he was talking about, right? People sometimes say, 90% of this. He might mean a lot. I'm not sure if it's actually 90% or not. It might be. But I'm sure it's high either way. But that's a good point you bring up, Kirsten. I appreciate that. Yes. So, all right. Nancy says, great seeing you in Ulster County. Thanks for coming. I have been all over the state. For those who don't know, it's all 62 counties. So, all right, guys, I want to say thank you so much for this evening. I thought it was an interesting show. I hope you guys found some value in it. Please like, comment, and share. I always tell you, please do it. If you want to check out the pandemic survey, it's great. Please share it. It does matter a lot. It helps out my sponsors. Please take care of that if you can. Guys, thank you so much. I will see you all tomorrow.